As always, I'd like to say you read the disclaimer. Hopefully, you understand it. I'd also like to add to that I am not a therapist. I'm not pretending to be one. I'm not portraying one. I do not wish to be your therapist. I'm just healing in real life, in real time, and inviting you along for the journey. Also, individuals whom come on the show to share their story, share their testimony. It may be explicit, maybe a little racy, raunchy. They are going to express themselves however they choose. So I give creative license for that expression. So please respect their vulnerability and the privilege of them sharing their feelings and expression however they choose to deliver it with us. With that being, the camera straight ahead.
Okay.
With that being said, welcome back to another episode of the Trust Tree. I am your trustee, the Nash Vino. Today, we are sitting here with a very special guest, this lovely lady, Black High Priestess. Uh, what I like to do is have the guest introduce themselves in their own words. So, explain to the people who you are, where you come from, and in your own words.
In my own words, I am the Black High Priestess. I come from Chicago, Illinois. I was raised in Mount Prospect. And yeah, I just been elevating the Black race, particularly elevating Black women in a lot of ways since 2012 when I started offering oracle consultations through tarot readings. And now I just use my pure psychic power to do those things.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about your beginnings, like your upbringing, and then we'll get to what brought you to Black High Priestess.
Whoa, let's talk. It's gonna be fun.
So how was your childhood? And you were born in Mount Prospect?
No, I grew up in Mount Prospect. I was born in Chicago,
Okay.
South Side at Rush Presbyterian, I believe.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So how from your remember your recollection, how was your childhood?
Ooh, I remember being in my mom's womb. My memory is impeccable, which is could be a blessing and a curse. You know, my mom, my father. I I shouldn't say it like this, but I tell people it's like my father killed people in Vietnam, but I guess I should just say he was a Marine. But in my words, he was an honorably discharged Marine. So I was the youngest. My father had 5 kids by 4 different women.
Okay.
My mom was I don't want to say like baby mama number 3, but that sounds bad because my father is an excellent, excellent father. But he dealt with a lot of post-traumatic stress and everything like that. So after Vietnam, when he met my mom, when she was working at the VA hospital and he was also, doing security there and everything, that's how me and my brother were conceived. Um, they were staying in Cabrini Green at the time. My mother's from Robert Taylor Homes. My father was living in Cabrini Green. So between the circumstances of them not seeing eye to eye in a lot of ways, the PTSD that my father was dealing with, and just my mother seeing a better life for us, she took the government assistance from him being a Marine and moved us out there. So my childhood was um, in a way blessed considering being a poor Black girl from the actual projects of Chicago and being raised in a predominantly white suburbs. It was a blessing in a lot of ways, but I dealt with a lot of firsthand racism that
Mm.
people don't understand because I was the only Black person in a lot of situations. And um, so I had to really fight white supremacy firsthand, and so that's kind of how Black High Priestess became. My father was very active in our life. He actually had to ask around the whole hood to find out where my mother took us. So that helps counteract that stigma about Black men and with fatherhood. I think Black men are trash when it comes to relationships with Black women through my experiences, but Black men are pretty good fathers. They love their children. They hate the mothers. They hate the women. They don't know how to love Black women, but Black men love their children. They love having children. And my father fought to be in our life because my mother, made it very, she made it hard on him. But she was doing that to make it easier on us in the long run when it comes to education and access to opportunities. And so I think that's reflected in who I become. Now, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness.
Mm.
So that was a fucking nightmare for me. Um, because I didn't agree with the religion. I didn't want to live that way. My childhood was dressing up, being around upper middle class white people, going to a Kingdom Hall, um, learning about the Bible, but also um, what I consider to be a false religion, because it is a religion. We do understand the origins of it. Charles T. Rutherford was, funded it off of opium sales overseas.
Damn.
So yeah, I mean, I do my research, but Black High Priestess, because was studying the Bible and at Bible scholar level, not just studying by going to the Kingdom Hall, I actually was learning. I was interested. I was absorbing information. So that translated into me finding my own forms of spirituality. I read the Satanic Bible in, I think, junior high or high school when I was a freshman. Um, Recognized immediately a lot of racism and like, for me it was not what it was trying to present itself to be. So I really got into witchcraft and just understanding in the terms of understanding indigenous culture, indigenous heritage.
Hmm.
Because my mother was holistic. My grandmother, who was a German woman, she was married to a Jewish man at the time, and
That's a
they
lot.
yeah, so they were older, so it mattered. But in the Kingdom Hall, she took my mom and she basically kind of adopted my mom and adopted us almost as grandchildren. So like you'll see, like we'll have our baby pictures or our childhood pictures next to their grandchildren too. So that was the mother figure that my mother had, and to this day, she still goes to see her. My grandmother, um, on that side, she's in her 90s, and
Mm.
my mother still does go to see her and take care of her. Her husband, my grandfather, died, years ago, like probably like probably when I was in my early 20s, I want to say. um but she helped my mother have a holistic lifestyle. I grew up going to Michigan in their summer home, in their summer cottage. So in the summers I was either in the projects, hanging out with my cousins in the hood, or I was in Michigan, in a,
Complete opposite
in
experience.
a rural part of Michigan, like dirt roads. We would go to the apple orchard and like pick our fruit. We would forage for tea leaves. I learned, gardening. I learned how to swim. So I was being raised and groomed like upper middle class white people from the projects.
Now,
And
when you were in the projects, because that's where you started at before your mom took you guys to Mount Prospect, do you remember having a concept of race at that point?
um I don't know how to say this. My father did not like white people. And he ended up in Vietnam because he got caught looting in the Martin Luther King riots. So
Mm.
my father has always had a black revolutionary streak to him, and he very much instilled that in us. Um, my father was studying to be a Jehovah's Witness on the South Side with black people in the Kingdom Halls here
Okay.
because he thought that that would be his ticket into marrying my mother and being in the home with us. And when she told him that even if he became a Jehovah's Witness, she still wouldn't marry him, he stopped studying cold turkey. So because my father um, dealt with a lot of racism, understood racism, and had a problem with white people in particular ways, he was very vocal about racism and
Okay.
white people. So I think my first concept of it came more so from my father, but seeing my mother experience racism as a black woman who's a single mother with two kids
Hmm.
around white people who are married and upper class and religious and all these things, seeing the things that we had to deal with, like going to a doctor's office and doctors not wanting to take us, and like, the nice doctor who sees us waiting and getting overlooked taking us, or me going to the pharmacy to pick up medicine and being called a nigger
Mm,
by a white pharmacist when I'm 5 years old and next to my brother, and then my mother having to go in and curse him out. Recognize seeing those things, and then also recognizing like there's no man to defend these things. My mother has to handle these things that a husband should really be handling, because I'm learning that in the Kingdom Hall. I'm learning something completely different than what I'm having to live day to day. So I think I think I never really had an opportunity to not see myself as somebody who's gonna struggle because I'm black, because
hmm
that was my whole reality.
Yeah.
That was my whole reality, is you're black, you're around white people, you're black. And it's not just you're black. We were poor. Every black person who grew up in the suburbs was not poor. We were every most black people on the south side, or in not necessarily in the projects, but in predominantly black communities, like maybe say the south suburbs, did not grow up as poor as I did. Had two parents in the home, had cars and things like that. So my experience of poverty allowed me to relate to the people on the other side of the tracks in Mount Prospect. So I grew up around the immigrants. I grew up around the Indians. I grew up around the Eastern Europeans, the Polish, lots of Mexicans, and Africans, West Africans, not just West, like South African, um, uh, Zimbabwe, and Zambia were the main countries that the Africans that I was close to growing up came from. So my experience being poor allowed me to relate to immigrants and people who were poor, which also included white trash,
Mm.
which is poor white people too. Um, Whereas, if you're growing up, if you're black and you're growing up like the Huxtables or something similar to that, where you're not struggling every day, you're not seeing your mother struggle every day, and you have a father in the home, and you may be in a community that doesn't have the same resources, but you're not experiencing poverty, you're not experiencing a struggle. So
That's a whole nother layer of struggle.
it's a whole nother layer of struggle that every black person cannot genuinely relate to, not genuinely.
Now, when you were in the projects, you were going to a Kingdom Hall that was here, basically. And then you guys moved to Mount Prospect, and then you started going to that Kingdom Hall.
I don't remember going in the when we were in the projects, I was still a baby. When I was a baby, my mother took us to Mount Prospect. So my father wasn't even there when I was born. I think that they were arguing at that time too. So I my experience in the projects, I was a baby. My brother, being about a year and a half older than me, he probably had a little more experience when we were living with my grandmother on my father's side, and staying in Cabrini Green. But visiting, say, like my father did not, by the time we were a little older, um my father had a house. It was like on 106th and Sangamon. So well, it was in the hundreds. It was in 106th and Sangamon. That was someone else's place, but it was in the hundreds. So when my father would come get us, like for the weekends or in the summer, we would stay there. And then when he lost his place and he moved in with my stepmom now, they were staying like by 72nd and Jeffrey. So as a baby, I mostly remember being in Mount Prospect, um, and my parents arguing a lot. I remember being in the Kingdom Hall as a baby, like my mom holding me. I would scream to the top of my lungs sometimes because she would go up to give a speech, in the Kingdom Hall, and I would scream to the top of my lungs until I would get my mom back and stuff. Because you're surrounded by a bunch of white people.
Yeah, it's like
you
the
know,
energy was probably
it was
crazy
the
in there.
energy.
Yeah.
So she was always, once we were out of the projects and my mother was not with my dad's side of the family anymore. After that, we were staying in Mount Prospect, and my father had to come find us and get us. So I don't think we ever went to a Kingdom Hall on the south side. I don't think even with my father. Um, it was a black couple that got my mother into being a Jehovah's Witness. But by the time she moved at Mount Prospect, yeah, we that was mostly the experience of that. My experience in the projects, again, while my cousins were still staying in Cabrini Green before they moved over by Jeffrey, you know, like I just remember going over there, hanging out. I remember my aunt calling my dad and asking him what to feed me because I didn't eat grits, I didn't eat I didn't eat all the food. I ate food. My mother was more healthy. We ate food. Um, we ate the food in the suburbs. We ate fast food a little bit, but not too much. So I didn't eat a lot of the stuff that we ate. And I remember my cousins got real excited because my dad had to give my aunt money, and we all went to McDonald's because I wouldn't eat anything that she had. So those are like fun memories.
You said something that I find very interesting about the male female relationship dynamic, specifically black men and black women, and how black men are great fathers, but trash as far as like being a husband or the the man in the woman's life. And I think a lot of people's experiences are the parental relationship was what we would have wanted it to be, but then that kind of even got a little toxic because of the dynamic between them. So sometimes it made it impossible for the parent to parent. So
Yeah.
when you were growing up, do you, cuz okay, so he was in Vietnam when you were very very little.
I was probably swimming around in my dad's nutsack if I was even a cum stain
Gotcha.
when he was in Vietnam. You got to realize, um, my dad was 30, like my mom was 12, 13. There's a 13-year age gap between my mom and my father. And my father, again, he was born in 1950. I don't want to age myself, but I was born in 85.
Okay.
So by the time my dad had me, he was 36 something, and then we had my brother Patrick who got murdered in Houston in 2014, but
I'm
that
sorry
was
to
the
hear.
youngest one. I got two older sisters. Um, so I came after Vietnam. Like
Okay.
you can kind of chronicle my dad's life
Gotcha.
through each child.
So do you think
So
the PTSD from that played a part in how that relationship worked out?
looking back now as an adult, I think that the age gap probably played more. My the PTSD, yeah, my dad was kind of, you never know if it was a PTSD or if it was just
If it was just him?
him sometimes, because my dad was also an actor, and my dad was my father, he didn't teach me too much stuff, too much gruesome things, but one thing he passed on to me was psychology. My father was a psychic. I've seen him read people's minds. And so my father taught me psychology, military level psychology. And that's some of the things I use to try and awaken, black people to the conspiracies of white supremacy. Um, so and my father studied at Columbia, and he was an actor and everything. So I mean, I say that to say my father was a very interesting character, and he was very manipulative, and he used psychology a lot. So sometimes you didn't know whether he was acting or not. When he was, I probably shouldn't say too much, but the government's already watching me anyway. But it's like he admitted that when they would give him those pills, they give you the pills for whatever, whatever, he would keep them under his tongue and act like he was swallowing them, and he would act crazy. You know what I'm saying? But he wasn't actually taking the pills. He because he didn't trust,
Whatever
I
the
mean,
intention
yeah,
was.
and they did experiment on my father. My father wrote Obama when he was the Illinois senator before he became president, because the the VA gave my father glaucoma, or they tried to. They put something on his eye, and he knew about it, and he had vision problems. My father became Christian because he had a miracle happen to him. My mother, I very much believe, was indoctrinated and somewhat brainwashed into the Jehovah's Witness religion because she had a very rough childhood.
So it was a safety thing?
I just think she had positive affirmations. When your life is rough and then you experience something that's positive and it seems like salvation and it gives you hope and it gives you this and that, you know, and you get these positive affirmations from this thing when your life has been a living hell. um it's easy to put all your trust and faith and pour into that.
Right.
Whereas my father, after Vietnam, he woke up, he had Asian Orange,
Mm.
and um the Agent Orange, whatever. And so it's like, he woke up one day in the hospital and he couldn't see his hand right in front of his face. He woke up blind. None of the doctors could figure it out. And he got on his knees and prayed for the first time to Christ. Now, my father was ignorant. He used to tell me that before someone taught him about Jesus, he thought they was talking about a hustler on the corner. When someone said, "Do you know do you know Jesus?" So that's the ignorance that my father comes from. And he admitted that. So when he prayed to that God and he woke up the next day and could see, and the doctors couldn't explain it even to this day, that was a miracle that happened to my father. And that's what got him into being Christian.
Okay.
So, you know, my father's a very, very interesting person. So, like I said, yeah, the PTSD, there was abuse and things like that going on, you know, but my mother, again, there, when I look back and look at an age gap and look at how immature both of them really were. I remember going to court. I remember going to custody court. I remember the judge asking me and my brother when my brother maybe was 6 or 7. My brother's a year and you know, so we were like 5 or 6. And I remember the judge asking us, and they asked my brother first because he was older, "Do you want to stay with your mom or your dad?" And we were both like, "My mom," because we
That's what
didn't.
you know.
That's what we knew. And we're being taught and told our life is better and this and that, and we're seeing the difference between Cabrini Green, and
Hmm.
we're seeing those things. But at that age also, but looking back and looking how my life is now, I it might have done me a lot of good to have stayed with my father when the opportunity was there, like more so in high school and everything, when my father was with, you know, his wife, and they had the extra room. And because I ran away when I was a teen. I ran away. I was kind of spoiled, like I had a car and everything, so I stayed in my car, and they were calling the cops and everything, trying to say the car was stolen to try and find me.
Your mom in Mount Prospect. That okay.
My dad did, because the car was like half in his name, but my mom was a part of it too. But I ran away. I remember the first time I wanted to stay with my dad and his wife, and it was kind of an issue. I think I was more like 12 or 13 or something. But then as I became a teenager and I had a car, like I couldn't take my mother's abuse anymore. And it wasn't like physical. Like, my mother was very abusive in a lot of ways, and she was very spiteful, and she would pick at me a lot. And I think that a lot of black daughters experience that when you are dealing with a black mother who does not have a man in the house to keep her in check and to keep her happy. Um, and in our community, um, a lot of times, you can get punished just for being a girl.
Hmm.
You're punished in the home just because you were born a girl. And we have to look at slavery. We have to look at, like, I don't want to get too much off topic, but bonnets and wearing bonnets in public and how that's a thing. But we got to realize, this is what I'm saying. We're still acting like slaves. We still think like slaves. In slavery, black women were not allowed to let the beauty of their hair show. They had to cover their hair up. So when black women are doing that now, you're just looking at the remnants of slave culture. When we're abusing our children and mistreating our daughters, you got to look at, um, what slavery did and what having slave masters did to us and how we treated each other, and a lot of things we had to do to survive. And, you know, there's a lot of that mammy syndrome, having to, the black woman breeding, not seeing any future for herself other than a breeder. That also leads to black women centering men, marrying the first guy, or having a baby by the first guy, or sleeping with the first guy, whatever. And We have to look, like I said, these black male and female relationships, a lot of them just smack of slave syndromes. And when you growing up seeing how people who are not slave descendants, poor people from other countries who are immigrants having much more respect for themselves, not even the rich white people, but we know how rich white people behave, and
Hmm.
that's why they remain rich white people. They will not betray and degrade their women because they know the value of keeping white women the standard of beauty. And I think as Black Eyed Priestess, I really just wanted to give Black women the tools that I was given to compete with the standards of beauty. But it was more than just beauty, but I was born with a look that was able to compete with that. But it was also the education, the experiences, being exposed to how white people are living and let you all know, like, hey, y'all, there's there's a real conspiracy, and if we don't really get into white society and see what's happening there, we're never gonna overcome this if we just stay crabs in the bucket. And I just think being exposed to that um at a young age, it gave me this. And my dad being a revolutionary, my dad instilling us in us to fight against racism, but he approved of how, like I said, running away, like, with my mom and everything. My my father, when I first tried to stay with my father, he sent me back to my mom because at the end of the day, he knew that how we were growing up was going to be better for us in the long term. And he knew me going there and end up transferring to another school or trying to, just trying to be in a place where I didn't have to deal with my mother's craziness.
Hmm.
Um, he knew at the end of the day, in the long run, it'd be better for me to go to school where I was going to school at. And I forgot what the question was, but I hope that,
We
you
were we
know,
were talking about the male female relationship dynamic aside from the father
yeah,
child.
I think looking back, my mother did not want to be deal with my father being abusive and manipulative. And again, she's barely 20. She wasn't old enough to drink when she had my brother, barely 21 when she had me. So she was a very wise woman, and she did what a lot of other women who had the same means to do, had children by men, were getting government funding or getting whatever child support. They had the same opportunities to go out of the hood. They chose to stay right where they were. And the result, but that's the result you get though. My mother was extremely brave, but also my mother had nothing really tying her. My mother loved being educated. She got made fun of a lot. She had to walk to school, city blocks to school. She would get beat up, chased, made fun of. She struggled to be educated. Her mother stuffed her in a mattress.
Mm.
There was a house fire, and my mother was the only survivor of her family. Her mother stuffed her in a mattress, and that's how she survived. So a lady, Bertha, on the block took her in, but she was getting money to have another child. We know how that goes.
Hmm.
But my mother was adopted, and that's how she grew up. So my mother had a very, very traumatic, like I remember when I did start smoking weed and stuff, and I come home like stinking a little bit or whatever. My mother, it's like she had a allergy to smoke, but she was in a fire as a baby. That's how she survived, and it was in the papers if anyone wants to like do some real journalism about it. But so looking when you have a completely traumatized woman, young woman, who's with a man who's older, already got these kids, got PTSD, and she's something in her smart enough and brave enough and rebellious enough to say, I'm going to raise my children this way. And she forced my father to conform to that. And eventually he saw the value in it. But when you look at the age gap and you get a woman who's indoctrinated by this false religion, and you get a man who's killed people in Vietnam, who's survived Vietnam as a black man, because
Hmm.
I remember it was Snoop. There was some interview that people were saying that black men had a 45-second survival rate once they landed in Vietnam because they had to not only worry about getting shot at from the Vietnamese, but they had to worry about getting shot at from the white soldiers who would just kill the black people just because they could get away with it. My
That's
father
crazy.
survived Vietnam, honorably discharged. So my dad loved my mom till the like before my dad married Angela.
And that Angela's your stepmom.
My stepmom. I just had a video of I have a video on YouTube that went viral. I've been doing YouTube for about 8 years. I have over 350 videos. And this video of my stepmom dancing at her birthday party last month went viral. I have over 25,000 views, um, hundreds of comments, about 2,000 likes. It went viral. And I've been doing YouTube for 8 years. And her dancing 80 years old at her party. So she's an amazing woman. She was an excellent woman for my father. She's the one woman that married him. All the women that he had kids by and everything. But the night before the wedding, my dad called me, and I'm 16 at this time, and it's like, Chaz, ask your mom, will she marry me?
Damn.
He's dead now, you know.
We,
What he's,
we got a comment talking about the and I hope I'm not butchering your name. Kazaya says appreciate you all hosting an open discussion about this topic. Personally, I forgot until recently that our parents most times had no idea what they were doing in their efforts to raise us. And that's absolutely just what a lot of us are in the middle of, because when you become an adult, perspective, right? And then also when you become a parent and like you get faced with some of these issues and you really think about shit. When I was a kid and I was
yeah.
pissed about this, that, and the third, or even like how you feel about your parents right now, when you really sit and think about the root of it, they only were doing the best they could what they had. I mean, it's
Yeah.
extremely difficult to do something different when you don't have the tools. And then, like you were saying about your mom, that she had the presence of mind to know, I got to get the fuck out of here
Hmm.
because this environment doesn't serve what I want for my children.
Yeah, and that's why I say my mother is and my parents are incredible. Like and I look in them like I literally look in the mirror every day and I get freaked out at who I am. But my name is Chastity Unique Smith. That's not an alias. That's what my mother named me. Like there's nothing normal about my life. And I look at my parents, I'm like, these are incredible, two incredible people that were brought together to create me
Mhm.
and all the purpose I have. But when I look back as an adult, um, my mother chose not to be with my father. Like I said, the day before he was married, he would have been with her. And my grandparents, the white ones, they told me and my brother when we were young, they were like, you and your brother get the most from your father because he loves your mother. He loves your mother. And again, my father was a great father, but he did a lot for us. He did a lot. I remember you're driving from Mount Prospect to the hundreds, and we used to play this Greyhound thing where every time we saw a Greyhound bus, my dad would like give us $2
Damn.
or something like that, or like little games and things like that. So all I'm saying is, as my father grew and he changed, and I saw him change over the years. I didn't know my father when he was super young, but I know that he did a 180. He died a completely different man than how he lived. Never cheated on his wife. I mean, was a Rolling Stone. But once he was married, never cheated on Angela. Um, Changed a lot, changed his eating habits. He changed a lot about himself. And he died a man of faith. He died a faithful man, and um he wanted a Christian community for me. He thought that getting into the church, more so like the black church where people dance, and he always knew I wanted to be into entertainment.
Entertainment. Hmm.
But there's no choir in the Kingdom Hall. Most black music artists started in the church. In my generation, Destiny's Child,
Yeah,
they
pretty
all
much
started
everybody.
in the
Yeah.
church. Here I am stuck in the Kingdom Hall with no choir. They singing dry, pasty, dry songs, not
Hmm.
jamming for God at all. And when I did do gymnastics and I wanted to do different things and I did dance and I did orchestra, My my mother was like, "Oh, well, you still got to go to the Kingdom Hall 3 times a week." And I had practice every night on and Saturday mornings. But I still had to figure out how to go. So that's when I started going to the Black Kingdom Hall because
Mm.
she's like, "Oh, well, so the only schedule that was available was the Kingdom Halls on the South Side." So we would start going to the Kingdom Halls on the South Side just to fit it into my uh sports schedule. And all I'm trying to say that my mother became a huge problem in my development. Her religion and her inability to be a mother instead of just a dictator and a provider and essentially a father. She acted more like a father, so to speak. And she was not really she loved us, but she wasn't the emotional parent. When my dad came and got us, it was great America, movies, fun. And then when we got older, it was okay, we're going to go downtown, we're going to take care of business, we're going to check the mail, we're going to do insurance, we're going to take care of what business, he whatever business he taught us, pay your cell phone bill, get car insurance, get this that taken care of. Now then we're going to go see the movie, then we're going to go have fun. It was always fun and games with my father. With my
Mm.
mother, it was go to school, get good grades, go to the Kingdom Hall.
Do you
And there was
think
no reward. It was always punishment, never a reward.
do you think that was because she was jealous of the freedom that you have just being a child? And before you answer that, hold that thought. Lastly, I personally believe because of this fact, in reality, life deals us with 10% of the surrounding circumstances we experience, like traumas, but it really is about the 90% how we react to it. And that kind of
Girl,
goes into the question that I just asked you about your mom. Like now, well, okay, twofold. In the middle of it, if you could think back, she's a dictator to you. It's almost like everything you want to do that's fun and awesome and whatever it is that you want to do, there's some sort of opposition. When you were in the middle of it, do you remember what you felt?
I suffered from depression as long as I can remember. I used to draw pictures. I was in grade school drawing pictures that my teachers had to talk to my parents about. And then I ended up, oh, just get her a pet or whatever. My mother was very abusive in a lot of ways, very abusive. And the older I got, the more she took from me. One time, one of the black ladies in the kingdom, because we any black person who came to Kingdom Hall, we became close to. Okay, so but like one of the ladies got me a shirt that said Miss Hip Hop. So if anyone wants to know, hip hop has always been in me, but I was like 11, and she got me, it was like 11 or 12, and she got me a nice shirt with a black girl, mind you, with little afro puffs on there. I'm in the suburbs. I don't see anything black. And so she's getting me a shirt with a black girl. And it's like a white shirt with this black girl and it says Miss Hip Hop on it. And it's just like a cute shirt. And and I think she got my brother like some type of shirt too. The next day my mother took it back to the store because she didn't want me to have it. She would do stuff like that a lot
No
to
explanation as to why?
um my mother's explanation, it was always something related to it being against the religion or being this that, but my mother used the religion to justify her madness and her envy and her inability um to cope with the pressure of keeping your children safe and protected when you chose not to have a man in the home.
When did you draw on that perspective?
Unfortunately, way unfortunately, very, very recently. My father died in 2020, and it kind of took that, and it took a lot of things for me to look at my life and why it wasn't the way it should be for someone as talented and beautiful and um, genuine as me. And it took a while to trace it back to still trying to look for this crazy woman's approval when at the end of the day nothing I ever did. Being a straight A student, there was nothing I ever did, and a lot of my depression, suicidal depression, that I had to overcome myself. The fact that I overcame that on my own um, I became Black High Priestess, but I didn't realize that if my mother had just loved me, I wouldn't have experienced all that turmoil. So it's like I had to recognize, and like I said, my father dying forced me forced me to look at my support system because he did not leave me any money. And whatever money that my brother got, he did not share it with me. And when I needed him to, when my cat was almost dying, it was a friend that I had known for less than 5 years that helped me. I had to look at who was in my life at that time, and I had to call on my femininity for real because I did not have a husband, I didn't have a boyfriend, I didn't have anybody, and there was no money left. And I was going through a very hard time. So my dad was like, "Oh, you never have to sleep with a man for money as long as I'm alive, as long as you have your parents." And that was very much true. In a lot of ways, people thought I was spoiled. But when my father died, I had to call on everything that he taught me to survive, and some of the things my mother taught me, and that forced me to look at my life, and it forced me to look at my mother's life. And all I'm saying is now, the way the way my father died and the sick situation that he died in, um is a reflection of the God that he worshiped and what it did for him. And my mother's life is very much a reflection of the religion that she has chosen. And um you know uh I love my mom, but she's not married. I don't know how happy that she is. Um, looking at the decisions that she's made, she made things hard on my father. She made things hard on me. She had a problem with my father's side of the family. Now, yeah, they were mean to her. They tried to beat her up, this, and that, whatever. So I understand dealing with women, you know, who are different than you and everything. But I don't think my mother ever really grew up out of her, or out of the immaturity that she could have grown out of to have a healthy relationship with a man, with herself. And I think that when you have so much trauma and you don't get over it, like everything I went through, all the suicide and depression and all the turmoil that came from being a dark skinned, kinky haired Black girl in the suburbs, I had to look at my support system. I remember one time my grandparents went on vacation, and I'm a teenager at this time, and like I'm hanging out with kind of my boyfriend. I wasn't really allowed to have one or whatever, and I called my mom to see if I can stay out one extra hour later. And of course the answer was no. And when my grandparents got back from vacation, my grandma was like, I knew that there would be a problem when we left the house because they knew that my mother was going to pick on me somehow. Um, she wouldn't let me take anthropology class in high school. And I had to explain to the teacher, you're great teachers. I really want to take this class, but because of my mother's religion, she won't allow me to. So people got to understand what my childhood was like when you ask what my childhood was like. Valentine's Day, when everyone's getting them little heart candies on the little notes in school. Christmas, when everyone's getting gifts and doing things. I didn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. When everyone's saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we're sitting there, sitting or not doing anything, which is, I get that. I'm glad that I didn't pledge my allegiance to a nation of racism, whatever. But at the end of the day, there was no reward. I didn't celebrate my birthday till I was 18, 19, maybe. I didn't celebrate holidays and things. So when my father would have Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas dinners and do things for me for my birthday, like I said, everything with my father was a reward for actually being excellent kids around white people. My mother is just like, she went out of her way to punish me, even though I was an excellent student, not pregnant, getting good grades, not sleeping around, not doing drugs. So, you know, she had my mother had issues, and I had to deal with that. you know. So when I look at other women who are at my age or in my age range who are single and child free, and there's a whole single child free, I don't want to call it a movement, it's just a situation that a lot of women find ourselves in. And you look at what your childhood was like for a woman to say, you know what, having a child is just, it's just going to make my hard life even harder.
Yeah, especially if you're not emotionally prepared for it. Because, I mean, frankly, more than likely, you would project all that shit on the kid.
Actually, I think I would have been an excellent mother.
You probably would,
I would like
but it would
I
creep out.
actually am an excellent mother, as because when you see your mother treat you so bad just because you're female, just because she doesn't want to heal, just because a religion will let her get away with abusing you. Because I remember one time they did a house call and my mother told me not to say this and not to say that when I should have just fucking told on her ass
Mm.
and had them hold her accountable. But you know, but your mother is your mother, and when you're being told that you know, when you're treated like you owe them something because your life is so better than it could be because you know all that um dictating and manipulating, and you know, you have to get around other people. It wasn't until I got to college and I saw other people's relationships with their parents that I realized
There's another side to this.
this is not love,
Yeah. Well,
you know.
so you went a little while ago when you talked about the depression that you experienced as a young adult.
Hmm.
And you said that if she would have just loved you, it would have made a world of a difference. Have you thought about as an adult what does that mean? Like if she would have just loved me, like what does that look like?
um when you know, when you don't get the love and attention that you're supposed to, you can seek it in other ways. And um I look at myself and I've always, like I said, I've always been an entertainer. I've always been expressive and sexual with my body. I've never been shy about my body. I've always been a model. But I look at the differences between me and my lifestyle and between women who went to college, graduated, got married, and by the time they were 25 to another guy who was eligible. I look at the difference, and I've studied psychology a lot to help me. And I think that if my mother had of loved me for who I was instead of how much I could be like her, I would have had the freedom to pursue what I wanted to do, what I was good at doing, what I was passionate about doing, and I would have been so much further in those arenas like modeling, music, being an actress. I would have pursued those things. And because I was good at those things and because I had intelligence to not everyone doesn't have to go to college and this and that. I was able to get into DePaul, but I also had enough intelligence to become an actress and make money off of that too. And so if my mother had to love me for who I was, the way a Beyonce can be loved and adored and promoted and elevated and poured into what she loves doing, instead of, oh, you love this doing this, I'm going to make it as hard as I can for you, I'm going to abuse you, I'm going to stop you from doing this, and I'm going to force you to do what I want you to do. And I think my life would have looked a lot different. I just think that I would have been further ahead. And I think without people understanding this side of my story, I can't rightfully explain to someone why I am so incredibly talented and not more successful or more rich and famous. When you don't have the right support system, doesn't matter how good you are at something. Without the right support system, you'll never take flight. Unless you build your own plane. And building my own plane, I'm still building my own plane. And hip hop is I decided to focus on hip hop this year between being a sommelier and a model and Black Eyed Priestess and all these things. Hip hop is where I get the most support. Not a lot of places you can go dressed like this as a woman surrounded by a bunch of dudes talking the way I talk with the lyrics that I talk about and get respected as an artist
Mm.
and not touched inappropriately. disrespected inappropriately, not a bunch of married men trying to hit on you, but instead offering you studio time, offering you, let me help you make your music video. How can I help you do this? How can I help you as an artist? Chicago hip hop. So, you know, people are like, how'd you just start recording one song in 2020 and you've done this much and that much? Because this I've had this support system for 20 years. I've been on the scene since '03. The support system was already there. I just started participating more.
Mm.
You know?
And just so you know, I wrote down some questions.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
not on social media fucking around, with my
No,
phone in
no,
my
I
hand.
don't care. I don't care.
I
We
just don't
doing
want you to
this.
think I'm being rude.
No, not at all.
So considering, your journey and stresses and expression and like, and being suppressed in a lot of ways, what what purpose and meaning does art take on for you from a standpoint of survival?
I I had a business. I started doing tarot in 2012. Um and when COVID happened and my unemployment was jacked up and I didn't have any income for 6 months and I was going off of some money I won at the casino and $1,000 grant that somebody gave us. um I Doing readings weekly sustained me. Um, going to shows and having my booth where I sold my soap, my jewelry, my oil pulling toothpaste, and readings sustained me. So when you sell your artwork and you turn it into a business, you will survive. And I would teach sacred economics. So sacred economics is kind of the barter system, but through that I'm using my intelligence and my skills, my homemade products to survive, and that's economics. So for me, art is it can also be a side hustle,
Hmm.
you know. It's not just about being able to express myself to overcome depression or things like that. I I think my spiritual practices, they can be considered a form of art. Witchcraft, the I mean, the suffix is witch, but the root is craft. And it used to be just called the craft because it dealt with different crafts and things. So the spiritual crafts, the rituals that I do help sustain me. Um when without a support system. My support system is widely invisible. But when I figured out how to share that with others and get paid, at first I was just charging what would be an ancestral offering, which was a bottle of rum or honey or something that I can use at my altar, like incense or certain items that were of value. But if someone didn't have anything valuable to offer, then I had to go to charge money. So um, as an artist, as a hip hop artist, I talk about this a lot when I talk with people like Los and Levi and other people on the business side. It's not your music is not selling. Your merchandise is. It's not your music that sells. The music ain't selling. It's your merchandise. Now, if you have a vinyl record, or if you can get a ringtone, or if you can get your song featured in a film or a soundtrack, like
Hmm.
I would like, now you're selling. But we know the music doesn't sell. You sell, your merch sells. And the best thing about me as an artist is I've had merchandise since 2012 to sell. So when I started performing, I would be performing mostly with the Aztecs, in Pilsen and Little Village areas. I started mostly with the Aztec revolutionaries. I got a That was my main support system, and I would be over there performing at people's shows. Mex in the City has a lot of open mics, and I would be able to have booths, and I would make money.
Okay. Now we've been talking about just about an hour, and you've talked about lots of different,
Gosh, I'm long-winded.
lots of different like situations and lots of different like pivotal points in your life. What moment in your life do you think shaped you the most?
Oh man. What moment in my life shaped me the most?
Lyric, what up? Lyric says, peace, y'all. Salute to the Black High Priestess.
You know, my father dying really it I was doing really good with my channel, with my products, with being consistent with things. My father helped too, cuz he bought me some Bibles to sell for my exorcism kit that I'm going to be selling in with my items as a kit. And that's one of the last things I have from him. That and his dog tags. And I would say I want to say that shaped me. I think it's very recent, but I really that that was hard. Like shit has been harsh. Like I got to be honest with y'all. Like I don't know how I'm doing this. Like I don't know how I'm doing. I don't even know how I'm here right now. Like I don't know how I'm even showing up and performing and getting dressed and doing this. I don't have help except for those of y'all who are real time like helping me get my message out. I don't have help. I wake up every day and I have to do everything on my own. And um dating has become like another chore to where I've just kind of opted out of it. Um when you don't have the help, especially of a man at this age, at this stage in my life and my career, I when my dad was the my biggest support system. He was my biggest support system, and in a blink of an eye, that was pulled from under me, almost at the peak of my Black High Priestess career. And I don't know how I'm doing this, y'all. I don't know how. I think I'm pretty. Y'all know my cat Lucky. I'm pretty sure he pays the rent. I'm pretty sure he pays the bills. I don't know how I'm doing this, y'all. I don't know how I'm doing any of this. I don't even know how I get up to go to work to make money to fund my life, let alone all this stuff that I'm doing. Um, I don't know how I'm doing this. I don't know how else to say this. Like, this is not possible. It's people ask me like, how do you do all this stuff? I don't know, but I must be meant to do it. And the fact that I'm doing it with like off a fume, like I can't explain to people how exhausted, how fucking exhausted I am with everything right now. Yet there's something in me that I show up. I just keep showing up. I just keep showing up because I'm realizing that's all I gotta do is just show up because I've done all the work. I just got it. I just have to broadcast it now. People don't know how much I've accomplished in my life. So, when my dad died, I guess it just that's when I actually shocked myself at how am I even doing this? And it's not finna stop. Like it's just getting bigger and bigger and more. Wait till they release that Shy City Cypher, and I'm gonna have to show up for even more. It's not finna stop, and I'm exhausted. But there's something. I don't know why I'm here, y'all. I don't want to be here, but while I'm here, I'm gonna fulfill Black High Priestess. So
So you
yeah,
you have a lot of there's a lot of conflict in you as it pertains to men, right? Like in relationships. And
no, I'm single. I'm child free. Um, I'm I'm single. There's the best thing about I guess the best thing about my life and probably why I'm able to do so much now is because I don't have any conflicts with men. I don't have a man, and I don't have conflicts with men. And I think there's something so special about decentering men. And the thing with decentering men, I think that that comes from a place of when your life was centered around men, and my life never was. But now, um, I don't want to say coming out of my whole phase, but like, like I mean, now, like just really being single and focused, and I don't even have time to date. So it's like, yeah, for the not for the first time, but like I'm I'm very clear about my relationship with men,
So
you know.
you are not necessarily like, I'm looking, but if it finds you, it finds you. Whatever. Do you feel like you have space?
No, I would say right now there's a lot of things happening in my life, but the goal, a goal that I want marriage, but it's not when you find yourself single, there's a lot of reasons that you're single for for whatever. But to pursue a relationship that can require going on a lot of dates, I've been networking and doing, like, people don't know how much I do. I don't just do hip hop shows and stuff. Like I'm a sommelier, so I'm if I'm not at work, I'm like at a wine event, a networking event, a liquor tasting, a networking event. There's an event tomorrow at the university. Like I do stuff. I do stuff that people don't even know about. And I still haven't met nobody.
Mhm.
So it's like dating it's something that you have to work toward, and I want marriage, but at this particular time, I don't have time to stop what I'm doing and pursue that goal actively. I'm pursuing it very passively. And that means I'm being myself, but I'm also thinking and behaving like I'm a wife, so as to create that circumstance, because I can't just actively go on dates as will be required for a woman like me. um the bet for me, gym membership and passport. I already have one of those. I don't really go to the gym a lot, but I just feel that I need to start putting myself in environments with men who are of my caliber. I don't think I've ever in my life been in an environment where there have been men who are eligible for me. Growing up in the suburbs, being a black girl, um, you know, it's easier than people think to get married to a cracker. But when that's not, when you know, when your father's a revolutionary, and you still have other sides to you, you're not going to end up a Candace Owens like everyone. You know what I'm saying? It if being in the thicket, um and in the bucket with the other crabs, knowing that, you know, it being like I feel like a big fish in a small pond, but at the end of the day, um I feel like that's part of that maturity for me to become who I am and get to where I need to be to find to be with my husband. And I talked to my sister like a year ago, my oldest sister, and she told me I'm not ready to get married yet. She told me, Chastity, you still pursuing goals and accomplishing this, that. She told me I wasn't ready for marriage.
Well, do you think that,
She
when, let's say you go out tonight to Soul Veg and find a shiny man, and this is the one or whatever, and you guys enter into a relationship, and do you think that you are prepared to surrender some of your endeavors if he requires that?
I don't see my husband requiring that. My husband's gonna be living a lifestyle in alignment with mine. And I think the thing with marriage and the thing with people like me that we find ourselves single is everyone does not want the same type of relationship. And every woman does not need to compromise because she needs someone to pay her bills. The best thing, and the thing that I love my mother a lot for, is like my father, who taught me you don't need to sleep with a man while I'm here as a father to protect you. My mother taught me the value of being an independent woman. And my father taught me that I come from a line of women who were independent, who were the first women to drive. You know, he was born in the 50s. We're talking about before then. My father taught me, and my grandmother, who died in her 80s and probably would have lived longer if they didn't misdiagnose a urinary tract infection, you know. Um, she was independent, going out, hanging out in her 80s, just like my stepmom. So every woman does not need to make a compromise because she needs to have a man, because she needs to have a husband, because she wants to have a husband, because she just doesn't want to have to work and go to work. I have jobs because I am picky and I can, and I, unlike a lot of women, I can get out here and work. I can do the labor. I have the intelligence. I can make my money. And there's a lot of women who are making a lot of money, who are intelligent. And these women have husbands, and these husbands are also millionaires. These husbands are also CEOs. I don't come from, I grew up in Mount Prospect. I didn't grow up in a slave syndrome environment where you put up with whatever's around you. And because I've been in that environment where these men are nowhere near my caliber, nowhere near, and some have college degrees and everything, but I can't take them to a certain tasting where people are speaking only Spanish or French, or some people you just can't take out the hood because you can't take the hood out of them. And so there's a lot to me. It's not going to be easy for everyone. You know, being me is, it's like being King Kong. King Kong didn't have no mate. Everybody ain't ants and birds and stuff. Some people don't, is phenomenal and exceptional and don't have no equal. My middle name is unique. That's not an alias. That's a birthright. So unique means one of it is kind. So everybody don't get matched the same way. And I've been in relationships where I didn't have to change who I was and everything. But so the type of relationship I'm looking for is for a man who is gonna come into my life and be okay with how often I fine dine on my own,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that I do on my own. My stepmom is still dancing. She danced, she sings. My dad was in entertainment. They stayed together because they already shared the same interest. You're not gonna have to do all of that madness that people feel they need to do. And when you're dealing with these men who are looking for a woman for some are looking for something other, like I want love and I want romance. Do you not think that I could not have all these things? But and I have to be very careful. I'm a sexual woman. I am a beautiful woman. Men marry according to their bank account, according to their self esteem, and according to how well they can fight. When I dated a martial artist, he had no problem because he was raised to fight and kill since he was 3. Some people are raised to fight, some people are raised to end it, not tussle and tussle. They learn how to end the situation. And when you're dealing with a man who's trained, my father killed people in Vietnam. That's not a lot of men can't measure up to that. And then stayed faithful to his wife. Half these dudes come back from war and they don't
It's just,
recover.
yeah, no.
So when a man has the masculinity that complements mine, that's what I look at as a marriage. And everyone doesn't find that overnight. My passport is going to allow me to travel different places where men have different masculinity. I've been in Chicago all my life, being this exceptional. That was stupid. I think the worst mistake I made is not studying abroad in my first and second years of DePaul, because I probably, I would have been probably successful in different ways being in a different environment. But you it's not shoulda, coulda, woulda. The reality of it is I know what I want from a relationship, and it's not going to be um it's not going to be about what he wants until he's my husband. That's not how it goes. A man is not going to come into my life looking to change me. If he's not coming in my life ready to love me and having the emotional, mental, and financial and spiritual stability to do so, do I look like I have time?
When you were a teenager, did you have that anywhere near that same perspective on relationships? Or do you think or were you just like the
I think
average
I
teenage
think I
girl?
think the thing with me is that I've always dated for love.
Mm.
I've always every time I've been with someone, I've been in love. And you know, I'm at a place where, I'm good. I've overcome a lot, and I, I'm ready for love, and I want it to be about that. But I also understand too the difference between now and then is I now am aware that a man needs to be financially stable for love to turn into marriage. He needs to be emotionally stable for love to turn into marriage. He needs to be have a certain level of maturity to complement for love to turn into marriage. Me, I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm an upgrade to the guy. I want to be evenly yoked, and I'm looking for a man who can lead me. And it's really not that hard.
Do you think if you, this version of yourself, if you could go back and talk to 16-year-old you and really like give her this game, like, so she has it at 16, do you think that she would receive it well?
16, what was I doing at 16? 16, my dad had got married. That was a happy time for me. 16 was probably one of my better times, and I think the year after that, like 9/11 happened. So I think honestly, I think when I was 16, I think I was probably in love. um I think at 16 this is what I needed. And I think if um yeah, I think because the way I look now is I have become exactly who I wanted to be. I've become the woman that I admire. So at 16, I would admire me now. And at 16, I needed a woman to tell me that love does not pay the bills.
Mm-mm.
I needed a woman to tell me how valuable my sex appeal was on paper financially. Because I understood all the other power to it, but I needed her to put I would need a woman to come tell me the price tag value on it. So I started having that standard because, you know, um, that's all. I mean, like, basically,
Yeah.
without a woman who understood and learned and knew, like Shira Seven,
Hmm.
a woman who understands how valuable being a sexy, beautiful woman is when you have the full package, that there needs to be a price tag on it, because there's no reason to be broke. And for me, um, if I didn't put more merit into spirituality and my faith, and if I didn't really go by what the Bible says about money and wealth and riches and those things, I would probably be a lot more harsh about putting financial value and stability, because 40 acres and a mule or $1 million, but you know men don't have what they need to have. If you're broke, at least know how to fight and kill, or at least know how to hunt and build a cabin or whatever. But these men have nothing to offer, nothing. And it's easy to fall in love with a man because of his character, but a lot of times, some women, we find ourselves single because we've always dated for love. And love does not translate into marriage.
It's very true.
Marriage is not always about uh love. And I look at a lot of married couples and things, and I look and I study and I observe, and I understand, you know I don't wake up and decide, oh, I want to have kids and this and that. So it's like I don't need the institute of marriage to have a nice romantic relationship with a man. But the stability that marriage brings a woman, and the safety that it allows a woman like me to express myself sexually with a man, that's something that, I require. That's something that I want, and it's not that hard. It's not that hard, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, um when you're a diamond, everybody's not going to be able to afford that. And even if they can, everybody doesn't want that responsibility. So,
It's valid. In life right now, are you happy?
um, I think happy is a strong word. Um, I, I don't feel the the way that I felt in in other times, but I don't know how to describe the feeling. I do. I'm at peace.
I think that
I'm
might be
not
better.
I'm not happy. I have a gaiety within me where I'm kind of just always happy. I'm like actually the definition of gay. Like I'm happy. I'm a happy for no reason person, and it really doesn't take a lot.
Like
People,
just generally pleasant.
yeah, I'm just like I have an excitement within me that doesn't take much to kind of rile up. It just takes the right thing. Like Homer, like, oh hey, a blue car. Like I'm really, yeah, I'm kind of like that. Like just a pint of Haagen Dazs, a shot of like it doesn't take much fireworks, but like I'm at my most peaceful. I'm at a very peaceful, content place in my life, and I think that that's what people are somewhat competing with when they
Yeah,
want to come into my life. They're competing with, are you contributing to the peace that I have right now, or are you interfering with it in any way?
I respect that.
You know?
I respect that. If you could know the absolute truth about one thing, what question would you ask?
Ooh, the truth about one thing. Oh man.
I thought about this. I couldn't come up with an answer for
Oh,
myself
come on. These are excellent, excellent
because I
questions.
feel like if it's one thing, I don't want to fuck that up. You know.
Well, um, mm, I really, I think that I, truth lives in me, and I just feel like about any situation, I feel like my gift that I share with others is my ability to discern um what's true and what's false, so to speak. So I don't, everything that I have questioned, I feel like I've earned some type of faith within myself, and some type of faith within being saved,
Mm.
and my God, or my savior. I think that I just think my faith has overcome my need to know, and I've just been gifted with, like, my mother's a high empath, my father was a psychic. I'm so careful with stuff like that. Especially having to distinguish between unclean fortune telling
Mm.
and soothsaying, and the gift of oracle that was given to the Hebrew Israelites, talked about, and the Leviticus and Melchizedek and all those things. Like I already, I yeah, I think if I had to, not see, I think I just know too much already. It's just I don't want to say it like that. I just am very careful with um
With the gift.
knowledge is power, and with great power comes great responsibility. If I wanted to know the truth about something, I know what I would have interviewed my father about his experiences in Vietnam before he died, and I would have asked him the truth about what he went through in
Hmm.
Vietnam, about the things he didn't tell me. That's the only thing that I wish I had known that I don't know now. Every in detail what my father went through in Vietnam. That's
Being
what I would want to know.
being being for lack of a better term, being tapped in, right? Does that help you to deal with life's like tragedies and like traumas, right? So like when really bad shit happens, there's so much shit. I won't pick a specific example, but like, do you feel like that kind of helps you cope with it? You know, like your general understanding of things.
Yeah. I I think that I've had ancestral forces. Some may consider that angelic forces that have helped me cope with things. And I think my spiritual traits allow me to understand that those things are there and to be sensitive to unseen forces. Um, it allows me to help other people with their problems. Um, it it allowed me to overcome the help that I needed as a black girl behind enemy lines, like I say, surrounded by white supremacy. I call
Hmm.
it behind enemy lines. And it it helped me when I didn't have the help from my mother that I probably needed, because she was figuring out how to deal with what she was figuring out. It strengthened me and it made me become Black High Priestess. And now I'm able to help other people get through things, whether or not they have any crutches, because I didn't have that. But also, my father survived Vietnam. My mother was a survivor. She survived the projects. My father survived the projects. He survived Vietnam. I come from a line of survivors. So, um, I think that that's something important to factor in. And one thing about understanding your traits of witchcraft, if you're a bloodborne witch, like I taught, when you have bloodborne traits, it's good to go with your bloodline to figure out what's in your bloodline, whether it's just immediately through your parents or through your greater heritage, to understand what type of ancestral forces you're dealing with and how they might show up. And Silver Ravenwolf, the teen witch books that she wrote, she a white woman was the first one to help me understand the importance of studying African ancestry to figure out my powers. And then I studied that, and then I dated a Creole who was a martial artist, and he opened the gates to a lot of voodoo and those things for me too. Learning. So again, bloodline traits have a lot to do with it, and I would behoove anyone watching, figure out your bloodline traits, figure out what talents go through your family, and remember, some things skip a generation.
Yeah.
Those, figure out them things that skipped a generation, that you're like your grandparents or whoever, or you see it happening in the grandchildren or the cousins or your children or whatever. um those are the things I help people kind of tap into. Look at what is in your heritage, because that's going to help you survive. And I think that um am I'm able to I have a very high tolerance for pain, and that's also emotional pain. And that's why people like me, we can find ourselves heartbroken a lot, but we love hard because we know we can survive the heartbreak. But I think I'm at a point where I'm just too exhausted. I want marriage because I don't feel it's beneficial for me to keep loving without, I'm just at that point now where
Okay.
I don't have it. I don't have, I probably do, I probably do, but sometimes you just gotta keep stuff, genie in a jar.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. And then too, and then too, like on like in a very real way. I'm curious to know when as you're out and about and having conversations with people, and you're talking about your gifts, right? And things like how do you deal with people that are just like she's fucking crazy? Like, what does that look like?
I got called a nigger at 5 by what
So
I
you
just
you calling me
I don't
crazy
know
don't
how to
mean shit.
make people understand. Like, yeah, I literally just did an upload about men calling you crazy, and I tried to explain what a beautiful woman can experience to make people say, oh, you're crazy, when no, I've had experiences for to help me understand the deeper psychology of people at a young age. And in that upload that I did on Instagram, I talked about how you will understand the wickedness of a woman when she's jealous of your beauty or your youth. You know, you will understand, you will receive the worst of a man when you arouse him. Men don't become gentlemen when, the book of Judges, worst rape in history happened right there in the book of Judges from the tribe of Benjamin. So, I've heard young girls talk about soldiers coming in, and they took the most beautiful girl, and raped her. These are things, so, and then people, and I was like, well, people will call you crazy for having wisdom because of your beauty. And I did an hour upload on Instagram. So I think people, my father was a drill sergeant, and people don't understand what I've been through. So you're gonna really like have to, like, if your intention is to offend me, I don't think you can do it worse than you can't do it worse than my mama and daddy did.
Mm.
That's a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to hurt me and get at me, and bring your worst, because it says no weapons form, no weapons form. So it's just
That's what they
like
say.
sticks and stones didn't break my bones. So what the fuck is you put it in a diss track, do whatever you have to do. But um I'm I'm in a lane that like I tell people, like, just don't push me, because we will find out together.
Mm-hmm.
We will find out together what might happen. We're dealing with we're dealing with things that we all don't understand, you
Yes.
know, fully. So um sometimes the best thing you can do is call me crazy. At least you're not calling me normal
I'll take that.
and average
I like that.
and regular and bored.
As of right now in life, what do you want for yourself in the next 2 years?
A garden and a tower on a golf course for me and my cats.
How many cats do you have?
Too many. You should ask me how many lives they have accumulated.
That's a whole nother goddamn subject. What what does love mean to you?
um,
And what does it feel like once you found it?
when I think of love now, I think of Oshun, the spirit of the river, and the fact that love, and according to African spirituality through Ifa and Yoruba, um, love is, frankly, it's the youngest force of nature to come to Earth and enter humanity. So understanding it through a Vodun perspective, the spirit of the river represents love, and I think that watching Pocahontas and her connection to the cartoon, so to speak, not the real story, but the way the Disney cartoon depicts Pocahontas and how her connection to the river, and she's got the song about just around the
Mhm.
river bend, and and she's talking to grandmother Willow. um I A lot of the Disney princesses are experiencing forms of love, different forms of they're expressing different forms of sacred femininity, so to speak. And so I look at I when I think of love now, I think of Oshun and the different ways that she showed up for me, and um like the things that she teaches me and how she sustains me and protects me. And it's a mystery. It is truly the mystery, and it is the mystery that is required. Remember, the other Orisha didn't think Oshun was necessary, and there was that Pataki, and this is including Yemaya. They all came to Earth, and they was trying to do their thing, and they didn't think that they needed Oshun, and so she sat on the moon, admiring herself until they realized that none of their powers worked. And then so when she came, that was the force that allowed everything else to work. So while it is the youngest, um, I wouldn't say it's arguably the most powerful, but it is has become incredibly necessary. And I think I think when we look at the way, going back to the relationships between black men and black women, and the way black people behave, I think it's very apparent that love and the expression of Oshun and sexuality and sensuality and all those things, I think it's very apparent that is very new
Mm-hmm.
to us, and the way black men and black women relate. And I think being raised around white women, and a lot of people, oh, you talk like a white girl and everything. Every black person who grew up in the suburbs didn't. When I went home, my mother spoke like this. My mother spoke proper English. So when I was going home, I wasn't hearing all that nonsense. Now people know I'll slip into it, because I still am from where I'm from. But you know my mother chose to be the version of herself that she would admire. She was always representing, so it's what you learn in the home too. And she chose to be around white people. She chose to learn from white women. She didn't have a connection to her mother, so she chose what femininity she was going to draw from. And you know um I talked a lot against Oshun being related to a white woman, or even Erjuli, Freda being considered white, but the idea of white people being the most recessive, um, genetic, so to speak, the newest genetic to the planet, so to speak, and relating that to the youth of Oshun, not necessarily looking at white culture, but the the way the women are uber feminine and are loved, adored, admired, not put to labor. So you take out that romantic, then we love in the black community to, oh, romantic. And what do black men do? Oh, that's Roman, and that's the wrong, they just can't wait to find an excuse to just treat us like men. And when you just won't stand for um anything less than being admired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might be princess energy, might be Disney princess energy.
But if that's genuine to you, I mean, that's your energy.
It's a gift and a mystery that Oshun helps us understand, um as men and women, loving ourselves, admiring ourselves. The water represents that mirror. Remember, Yemaya, the surface of the water, the reflection of the moon off the surface of the water, that's the first mirror, if you're not talking obsidian and scrying tools. Yemaya passed her mysteries on to Oshun because she didn't want to be bothered with humans. Oshun wanted to come up here like Little Mermaid and have legs and be woman. Okay. So, and get your heart broken by all these niggas. So, she's experiencing what it's like to be admired sexually. Oshun represents the sex that magnetizes and attracts opposites.
That's
So she
if you
deals,
desire that though, that's strong.
there's, Oya represents the protective love, that protection. Yemaya represents the maternal, she's the maternal. I talk about the sacred femininity. Uh, Oya, she deals with blood. She represents crone energy too. Life and death in your womb also being a tomb. Yemaya deals with the gestation, being pregnant, the swimming in the waters and all that stuff. But Oshun deals with the sex, what attracts and arouses people to get to that point of that. And when the importance of admiration, the looking in the mirror and admiring and the being aroused, that leads to that, and we just it's almost like that's skipped over, and that becomes a slave syndrome when you don't display beautiful black women, and you and slavery. It's like we were given chitlins, but also people you were either raped or you were forced to sleep with the ugly fat white women
Mhm.
who no one wanted, who to this day, when people are unaccepted, black people get flattered, but a lot of times we got to realize a lot of white people come to us when they're not accepted in their communities,
Yeah,
when they're not the standard of beauty in their community, which is extremely higher. We have no standards of beauty in the black community, and that's it's a little bit beyond slavery. But before slavery, black women had a certain beauty. We were forced to become breeders.
that's a lot to that fact about not being the standard of beauty and then searching for another place to belong.
White women cannot be obese and the standard of beauty. We're not dealing with West African standards of beauty where that is considered beautiful. And we're not dealing with the centuries where obesity represented wealth. Because when I look at people overweight, I feel like they got money. You can't afford to eat. And back then, being dark skinned and skinny like me meant you were poor because you were working in the fields and you didn't eat a lot.
Mhm.
And being large and light skinned was a representation of wealth.
Yeah,
That's how the
large and light
queens
skin.
looked. So we're looking at, in America, we're looking at standards of beauty, and Oshun, I think for me, love and self love and giving me the ability to love myself and show people what it looks like when you love yourself, when you're dealing with when you're dealing with the form of love that it's purely about that the sexual thing. It's not all about community and society and politics and everything like all the other Orishas are about. It's just literally about the joy of sex. And it's not just the act of sex, it's sex is male or female, but the joy of being a woman, the joy of being a man.
Hmm.
It's that's where the love starts, and I think that that gift that I was given, I think that that's what Oshun, what love has done for me. It's made me, because Oshun fights with what? A mirror. Oshun fights with a fan. So I'm fighting with femininity. I'm fighting with sexuality. I was given a gift that can allow me to compete with the sexual or beauty standards here that
Okay.
that are keeping black women from eligible black men who are
Okay.
forced to marry or who choose to, but a lot of times they get a little bit of wealth and they know that they'll lose it if they don't marry whoever's daughter they're getting it from. So,
Now we got a comment. Is from Kazaya again. She says, "Curious, do you both feel like you are walking with purpose in life as of this moment? If yes, can you summarize what that is? If not, why do you think so? For me personally, I would say yes, in the sense that this show is always something that I've wanted to do, and podcasting in general, and I am doing that. Also, just you know, working on myself and being honest about things. Like if I'm struggling with something, I'm struggling with it. If I'm feeling great about something, I'm expressive. If I feel like I need help in some kind of way, I will acknowledge that now. When there was a time when I wouldn't. I would just be struggling, and that is what it is. Trying to be the strong person,
Superwoman.
right? So I would say
Superwoman.
yes, but consider that that is a work in progress. What about you?
Well, it's funny you ask because I've been, I think, coming out as Black Eyed Priestess in 2012. That's when I chose to kind of start fulfilling my purpose by being of service, and offering services. And in 2025 and accomplished a lot. Being honest, I have walked in my purpose so long where in a way right now I feel a little bit lost. And I don't feel I've found exactly where I belong, to where I can really grow and flourish to, where I see myself as, where other people see me as, or, just a place where I feel like I can really grow in the way I want to kind of grow upward,
Mhm.
not just kind of moving around.
Do you feel like that's because you haven't found your people, or you you know what you want to do, but you don't know what you want to do at the same time?
Again, being honest, I think for me sometimes I just have to, I decided to focus on hip hop this year because sometimes you gotta pick a
You
target
gotta
and
hone
stick with
in.
it
Yeah.
before, because it's so easy to get distracted. And I've I also was looking at, again, where's my support system? Where 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 are things happening successfully for me? Instead of trying to make things, I've learned, I listen to stoicism. So that helps me a lot, aside from just like daily reading different daily texts from the Bible, and different little lessons to learn. Um Stoicism helps a lot in helping me shape my life the way I want to shape it.
Mhm.
Um I think it's kind of a martial arts way of thinking, and I'm kind of going with the flow, the path of least resistance, where I do get the most support. But Chi- uh, me and Chicago are having a very tricky relationship because I'm grateful. I have an attitude of gratitude, and I've had it since, like, 2024 was incredible. It was probably one of the best years of my life. It probably was, like, literally. It Since my father died, like, 2024 was like so much great things happened. Um, but I things need to be easier. I need to be in a I don't feel I don't feel the stimulation. And then again, when I started doing music, I had a lot of emotions to go off of, and I was going through things that I was able to pour into music. But sometimes when you don't get the right stimulation, and I'm just there's I'm not y- I'm there's I'm not impressed by anything here. And I think people keep trying to impress me, and it just gets on my nerves even more. And I just feel like the more I go out and experience the compliments that I get, and people wanting to dress like me and be like me and blue lips and it just I'm grateful, but all it does is just do you have a job for me? Do you have an opportunity for me? Do you have a paid movie role for me? Do you have something for me? Other Because I don't have time. I'm still trying to do things. So when there's a opportunity, I feel like I kind of jump at it because I'm grateful for something that's actually offering me. But again, I don't. I don't think people realize like how much I've done and have actually accomplished and haven't even published yet and different things. And I just I want I don't I haven't found what I'm looking for here. I don't have um there's not enough substance here. So I in a way, like with her talking about the purpose, I just feel like I feel a little lost. I don't feel like I'm exactly where I belong, where things are a reflection of me and able to offer me what I actually want, you
Okay.
know.
Question I'd like to ask everybody is: you're in a room full of everybody that you've ever loved.
Mm.
Who runs to you?
Oh, Rico. Everybody knows this. Rico, my cat.
Who do you
The one, yeah. Rico, I'm telling you. He's he's like my heart. It's like my heartbeat.
who do you run to?
Ooh. Ooh.
And they can be dead or alive because it's everybody you've ever loved.
I would I want to say SU. I don't know if people understand that, but those who know me and understand like the voting practices, um, SU, or some people may consider Papa Legba, which for me it's more SU, and that's the gatekeeper. And I guess I'm saying that because um again, Papa Legba is the crossroad, and there's a difference between running to the crossroad and running to the gatekeeper, and there's different forms of SU, and but I guess that's just where I'm at spiritually, and um that's people think of like, oh, your father, and I don't know, SU. I run to SU. Eshui Legbara, the gatekeeper. And cuz I mean, if I'm surrounded by people I love, I'm in heaven, and who's going to open the gates of heaven if it's not SU? So y'all, I hope y'all get it. I'm running to SU.
Okay.
Yeah, cuz I'm in the gates.
Well, we have come to that time. Tell the
Cheers to that.
people how they can contact you for everything.
At the Black High Priestess, TheBlackHighPriestess, So, Black High Priestess, blackhighpriestess.com is my website. Blackhighpriestess.etsy.com, that's my shop. Modelmayhem.com/chastity unique. That'll be my modeling profile that has probably not been updated in a few years. Um, but yeah, just check me out on social media. But blackhighpriestess.com. I'm not gonna lie, I might have to like pay my website dues. So, but yeah, just Instagram, hashtag Black High Priestess, Facebook, Black High Priestess. Check out my YouTube channel also. So Black High Priestess.
Are you gonna perform tonight at Soul Veg?
Um, I guess yeah. If I get a ride there and I get inspired to maybe spit at the at the open mic, but I honestly I'm trying to save a little bit for June 7th, when I'll be performing with a beautiful lineup of a lot of other local ladies at the Queen's Gambit. Um, so including one of your co-hosts, Ange 13.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
including Ocean Ballou, who I got to see and perform with. I think it was in February. Um, including, yeah, look at the lineup. There she is, including Via Drex, Christelle Lejeune. Look at all those people.
I just saw Ocean Blue at the 420 show.
Nice,
Hmm.
nice. So,
And Via Drex we just interviewed her on Unwrapped. Very, very dope person. Very, very dope.
Yeah, no
Absolutely
doubt.
love her. Okay. All right. Well, if you are in Chicago and you are not doing anything, they have the open mic for 606 Chicago at Soul Veg. Um, I have no idea what the address is, so just Google it. But it's called Soul Veg. But I appreciate you coming, sharing your story and your experiences. It's been very enlightening, very interesting. Um, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate the engagement. Uh,
Thanks for the questions.
yes, like, subscribe, share. Keep coming back. Every Tuesday we'll be here, 8:30 Central Standard Time. In the words of Avon Barksdale, keep it light, but keep it.
Peace.